scene is set. A building stands, as if expectantly waiting. People gather around in a crowd, observing, remembering, and wondering about the future. Words are spoken, recognitions and thanks are given. Yet words alone do not adequately convey the long road taken to arrive at this point, and the miles yet to go. An excited energy surrounds the event, still harnessed and ready to be unleashed. And then it happens. A shovel breaks the earth, a canvas drops away, and the moment arrives in a flurry, a glimpse of the future and a promise of what's to come. The groundbreaking may be an official start to a project, but behind the scenes, the production has been underway for a long time. Last year, Preservation Massachusetts pulled back the curtain to show how the various teams of professionals come together to build a strong foundation for the building's restoration to rise upon. In Act 2 of Producing Preservation, we see the visual transformation of the building occurring under the expert guidance of this evening's honorees. From architects, engineers, contractors, and conservators, to the ongoing guidance of consultants, legal experts, and financial institutions, it is now officially lights, camera, action. Each of this evening's honorees has contributed a tremendous amount to not just the preservation of historic buildings, but to the revitalization of our communities and the collective quality of life in Massachusetts. For the past 27 years, the Paul E. Tsongas Award has recognized those who have played an extraordinary role in promoting the preservation of our Commonwealth's past for the benefit of the future, and this year's honorees are no exception. Preservation Massachusetts is honored to celebrate them and their accomplishments with you this evening. The visual transformation now underway is rooted in a vision, one shared by and worked on by the entire project team. And giving definition and form to that vision are the architects. With their talent and artistic creativity, they blend the old and the new, bridging the span between years, uses, and styles of the building. At Bergmeyer Associates, Vice President and Principal Michael Davis combined sustainable design, adaptive reuse, historic preservation, and the enhancement of the public realm, specifically with the new LEED-registered Hosteling International Boston and Eustace Street Firehouse in Dudley Square. According to him, history is a fundamental part of the context an architect works within for any project. Buildings convey history in a way that nothing else does. Also at Bergmeyer, Senior Principal Joseph Nevin focuses on consumer environments and a passion for preservation that has led to work on key parcels in Boston's Back Bay, notably on Newbury and Boylston Streets. To him, it's been nothing short of gratifying to play a part in the revitalizing of these important pieces of Boston's history, and an absolute honor to be recognized for it. According to Henry Moss, principal at Brunner Cott, architectural education and architectural historians still have not recognized the powerful impact of adaptive reuse of historic buildings. Throughout his career, he has linked preservation with new uses, most notably with Mass MoCA, Watertown Arsenal, and the Waltham Watch Factory, and he has witnessed the positive results. Sensitive rehabilitation and expansion of existing buildings is healing our neighborhoods, campuses, and downtowns. It is intellectually and emotionally satisfying to activate the sensuous element of places that people have forgotten how to see. Our projects have depth, they build on the past. Davis Square Architects principal Brooks Mostue notes that in focusing his architectural practice on the preservation of historic structures, he follows others who observe that a civilized culture respects ancestry and saves the best of the old for a staircase to tomorrow. This is represented by his work at Ellis Memorial and Watermill Apartments. For fellow principal Cliff Boehmer, music is liquid architecture, architecture is frozen music. His formative work as a maker of early musical instruments and his architectural practice within Boston's historic neighborhoods, like the South End and Bay Village, are held in a quiet tension. One of the earliest experiences for Jim Alexander, principal of Feingold Alexander Architects, was the conversion of Boston's Old City Hall. Amending the Jonathan Swift adage, to make a silk purse out of a silk purse, to reflect transforming historic buildings and neglected spaces into positive community resources, it has guided a notable career that includes work on local, state, and nationally significant properties, from Boston's Opera House to New York's Ellis Island. Jim states that one of the strongest motivations for me as a designer is demonstrating that historic preservation and adaptive reuse of existing buildings is a creative and sustainable endeavor. According to Mike Pagano, president of Worcester's Lamoureux Pagano Associates, buildings express our heritage in 3 dimensions. They have so much to tell us about who we were, where we've been, and what was important to those who came before us. From successful work on the Hanover Theatre for the Performing Arts and award-winning Worcester Technical High School, to studying the future for Worcester's Memorial Auditorium, he believes a major goal is to keep this and other historic buildings occupied and updating them in ways that make them suitable for new uses. As president of McGinley Calso and Associates, Wendell Calso leads the firm's architectural and preservation practice and has worked on many distinguished historic buildings. Whether it is high up on a lift inspecting a steeple or finding creative ways to reuse buildings, his knowledge, appreciation for, and depth of knowledge of historic buildings is clear. He says, preservation of our built environment connects us to our rich cultural heritage and to our hopes and dreams for the future. Lynne Spencer's long and distinguished tenure in preservation began at the Society for the Preservation of New England Antiquities, where she apprenticed with the likes of Abbott Lowell Cummings, George Wren, and Morgan Phillips. Her work has taken her to some of our nation's most historic sites, from Toros Synagogue, Old North Church, and the birthplace of Abigail Adams. As a principal at Spencer Vogt Group, Lynne states, "I love beauty. I hate waste. I am relentlessly optimistic. While I sometimes fall under the spell of a building, large or small, grand or humble, it is the collaboration with talented colleagues, exacting clients, and skilled craftsmen that gives the greatest satisfaction." While the vision for how the old and new will work together is forming, priming the project, evaluating current historic conditions, and conserving historic details falls to a group of talented consultants and technicians. Their expertise guides and informs both design, repair, and construction work that ensures the unique historic character of the building is retained and protected. At Building Conservation Associates, Andrea Gilmore focuses her career and work on the repair and conservation of historic building materials. From surveys to repair treatments and implementing the actual work, she has worked on notable historic buildings from Old Ship Meeting House in Hingham, the Church of the Presidents in Quincy, to the Burnham Building in Boston's Downtown Crossing. Seeing the preservation of cultural and natural resources as forever work, Andrea says she is grateful for a career that has afforded her this challenge, and a reward and hope that in some way her work has contributed to preserving the historic buildings of Massachusetts. Historic buildings can sometimes translate into historic challenges. At Environmental Restorations, Stuart Gregerman works with overall project teams in efforts to safely and correctly abate toxic building materials while maintaining historic fabric correctly. With projects ranging from the iconic Charlestown Navy Yard and Ames Mansion in Easton to properties on Beacon Hill, their team sees the project through to ensure that no historic elements are damaged or lost, resulting in a more intact building and retaining that all-important historic character. What we do is antique restoration on a very large scale, and to do our best is to leave no unintended traces of our work. This is how John Wathne of Structures North Consulting Engineers describes his work. The firm is involved with more than 150 evaluations, renovations, and restoration stabilizations per year, from work on Independence Hall in Philadelphia, Boston's Modern Theater, to the Sakonnet Lighthouse restoration in Rhode Island, the most extensive structural rehabilitation ever completed on a brick-lined cast iron plate lighthouse. The work of John and his firm has helped make the case for stabilization over demolition on many projects, contributing much to the preservation landscape here in Massachusetts. The role of the preservation consultant continues to be key as the vision for the project builds and takes physical form. Their role and guidance on issues ranging from state and local compliance, National Register nominations, to applying for historic tax credits, they help to make sure that what the building once was will not be forgotten in its new life. With over 30 years of experience in preservation projects all across the country, Rita Walsh of Vanez Hangen Bruslin Incorporated has focused on New England for the past 9 years. According to Rita, I think that preservation can solve, or make a sizable contribution to, lots of different and what seem to be unrelated issues. Her work on historic tax credits, compliance, intensive documentation, exhibits, and interpretation has benefited numerous historic buildings across Massachusetts and beyond. At Machostie Historic Advisors, Albert Rex brings years of experience in both the nonprofit and for-profit sector to bear while working with clients on preservation issues. He has focused his career on the economic impact of historic rehabilitation, and he has first-hand experience. He was directly involved with the creation of the Massachusetts Historic Rehabilitation Tax Credit Program when he was executive director of the Boston Preservation Alliance. His work spans Massachusetts and beyond, and has truly changed how historic rehabilitations are seen and undertaken in Massachusetts. Preservation is at its nature a complex undertaking, and with complex projects, undoubtedly issues arise that need the support of attorneys experienced with preservation. And luckily, Massachusetts is home to some of the most highly regarded firms with that experience. David Abromowitz is a director at the law firm of Goulston & Storrs, and nationally known for his expertise in housing and economic development, many projects that also involve historic rehabilitation. Along with his team, he has been involved with numerous historic projects, including the Salem Jail, Eustis Street Firehouse, and the Holyoke Catholic School Complex. According to him, the sense of history and place we preserve here in Massachusetts is one of our greatest strengths. It is always a privilege to help preserve a slice of that history, working with many professionals involved in any historic tax credit transaction. At Klein Hornig, partner Daniel Kolodner takes his legal practice on community development finance, specifically the use of tax credit incentives, like the Historic Rehabilitation Tax Credit and New Markets tax credits to rehabilitate historic structures. According to him, what I love about historic preservation is the amazing impact it can have on communities throughout Massachusetts. When we rehabilitate historic structures, we not only get to save a piece of our collective history for future generations, but these historic rehabilitations can have a catalytic effect on our neighborhoods throughout the Commonwealth. No preservation project is possible without financial means and support. From direct lending and financing to tax credit investing and syndication, in order for the project to work, finances are key. And the contributions of these financial players to the project are true investments, not just in the building itself, but in the community and beyond. Eastern Bank has been involved with many historic preservation projects in Massachusetts. At the Riverwalk in Lawrence, a 144,000 square foot cotton mill building was restored into the headquarters for NX Stage, a medical device firm. In downtown Boston, the Haydon building, which is the only remaining commercial building designed by H.H. Richardson, was rehabilitated and preserved using a combination of state and federal historic tax credits. In Lowell, a historic mill was converted into a state-of-the-art health center, not only preserving an important piece of the city's history, but providing a much-needed and valued service to the community. At Needham Bank, the commercial real estate lending team brings years of lending experience to focus on residential construction in the communities that they serve. The historic renovations that they have supported provide a sense of history and foster community pride. According to the bank, historic buildings, neighborhoods, and landscapes tell the stories about what the community was and how it became what it is today. Preserving these stories is important to our borrowers and our communities, as the bank is proud to be an active participant in this venture. Novogradac and Company brings over 25 years of experience in affordable housing, community development, and renewable energy. Managing partner Michael Novogradac is very active in advocating for the inclusion of historic, affordable housing, new markets, and renewable energy tax credits into federal and state policy. The project finance participants who work in this industry all personally care about preserving America's historic properties, Mr. Novogradac says, which brings a unique sense of gratification that you don't typically find in other industries. As the wheels of preservation begin to turn more quickly, it falls to the developer to keep the team and elements centered and focused as the building begins to come to life. At Beacon Communities Development, Director of Development Josh Cohen and President Pam Goodman both bring years of experience with historic preservation, real estate development, and affordable housing to their work. Their work can be seen all across Massachusetts, including the Wilbur School in Sharon and the notable Ames Shovel Works in Northeaston. For them, there is a moment in every adaptive reuse job when the lights are turned back on inside what had been a vacant or underutilized building. Years of work led up to a construction start. Numerous challenges were overcome. Then one night you drive by the job site and see every light flowing through the new windows. New life in an old building. For us, it's a very rewarding moment and a big part of why we pursue these sorts of projects. Hall-Keen President and CEO Andrew Burns brings over 25 years of acquisitions, development, and real estate management to guide the firm. He pioneered the use of outmoded historic buildings with the reuse of New Bedford's Rodman Candle Works in 1979, making it one of the earliest preservation use projects in the country. A number of historic preservation projects have followed, including the Union Street Lofts in New Bedford and the Ames Privilege Mill in Chicopee, bringing revitalized use and vitality back to these deserving buildings and communities. The hallmark of Millennium Partners is the transformation of underutilized parcels into transit-oriented, pedestrian-friendly projects that offer diverse options for living, working, and shopping. To this end, the team of Anthony Pangaro, Kathleen McNeil, and Joseph Larkin often seek out difficult locations and turn them into catalysts for future growth. Probably the most well-known and most anticipated is the rehabilitation of Boston's Burnham Building at Downtown Crossing. From sensitive preservation to innovative new construction, the team works closely with state and local governments to realize maximum economic and social benefits for the surrounding communities. For John Brzezinski of Reese Larkin Development, it is deeply satisfying to incorporate preservation as a fundamental element of projects that are already meeting other important policy objectives, such as affordable housing and community development. The firm aims to create thoughtful, sustainable, and financially viable communities that are themselves assets to their larger communities. They have already succeeded with their projects like the Rice Silk Mill in Pittsfield. This once vacant mill building is now fully occupied, providing quality mixed-income housing and restoring an important piece of the neighborhood. The Community Builders, led by Bart Mitchell, is a leading nonprofit developer of mixed-income housing in the United States. According to him, there are beautiful historic assets in neighborhoods all across Massachusetts. Sometimes undervalued, many of these older buildings are the treasures that attract people to want to live here. because of their irreplaceable charm and unique character. Preserving them has been a great pleasure, and even more so when we can provide quality, affordable, and mixed-income housing across the Commonwealth. During his time at Winn Companies, Managing Principal Gilbert Winn has managed the origination and development of over $500 million in real estate investment projects. His recent focus has been on overseeing high-impact, historic, and environmentally sustainable developments, including the award-winning LEED Platinum Oliver Lofts in Boston and LEED Gold Canal Lofts in Worcester. The work of Winn Companies is an excellent example of how our historic buildings can be made to work once again and reinvigorate their surrounding communities. Without a doubt, one of the most exciting times for a preservation project is when the crews move in, machinery starts to hum, and the physical changes that have been envisioned for so long finally start to take shape under the expertise of our construction honorees. At Callahan Incorporated, President Patrick Callahan utilizes industry experience to oversee company operations, ensuring commitment from pre-construction through completion. To that end, his company has been the building and management force behind numerous historic projects, including the award-winning Hamel Lofts in Haverhill, School Street Residences in Athol, and schoolhouses at Lower Mills in Dorchester. Their finished work has brought new use and life back to these historic buildings, which are anchors to their communities. With over a century of experience, Consigli Construction Company has grown from a small local contractor to one of the largest construction management firms in the Northeast. Under the leadership of President Anthony Consigli and Vice President Matthew Consigli, they have completed more than 50 landmark projects, including Old South and Trinity Churches in Boston, Harvard's Blackstone Building, Lowell Community Health Center, the New York State Capitol Building, and the Renwick Gallery at the Smithsonian. Their historic preservation projects are more than just buildings to Anthony. For us, our preservation projects are not a job number on a financial transaction sheet. They represent relationships and experiences. We learn to appreciate old world craftsmanship, and at an early age, understanding the techniques and materials that would stand the test of time, says Matthew. We take great pride in preserving and restoring monuments and structures that serve as symbols of our heritage. We hope our great-grandfather would approve. CWC Builders specializes in historic renovations and affordable housing construction. Under the leadership of Bruce Polishook, they are committed to hands-on oversight and are recognized for their skill and experience with adaptive reuse. Their work on distinctive and important historic structures, such as the Appleton Mills in Lowell, has won them numerous awards. The role of CWC is integral to the entire project team, and their work, dedication, and proactive approaches help ensure the project's continued success. With a lifelong background in the construction industry and practice as an architect, Patrick Haydon saw an opportunity to create a design-build firm that would bring high-level professionalism and expertise to smaller redevelopment projects. From those beginnings, Haydon has played a role in a number of important preservation, custom residential, and multifamily renovations, such as the Philip Monroe House in Cambridge, Calvin Swallow Residence in Boston, and Robert T. Payne Row House restoration. Patrick and his team at Haydon bring a passion for craftsmanship to their work, whether it is constructing a contemporary building or restoring an historic gem back to its original glory. The adaptive reuse and restoration work of Kaplan Construction can be seen all throughout Greater Boston and beyond, from Washington Mills in Lawrence and residences at Riverwalk in Amesbury to the Metropolitan Waterworks Museum in Chestnut Hill. For owner Ken Kaplan, the history of a building is one of great interest. He says, "As a builder, I take great pleasure in walking through silent, abandoned, and often dilapidated mill buildings, and imagine their past lives prior to construction and rehab. It is fascinating to return after we have completed construction and see the occupants in their new homes, realizing that many of them haven't any idea of their building's rich and very different past. Carl J. has made a lifelong study of historic buildings, the architects who designed them, as well as construction methods and the tools used to build them. Combined with more than 30 years of experience and over 300 projects, he is considered a renowned preservation expert. As Shawmut Design and Construction's Director of Preservation, he has balanced his passion for preservation with budgetary and construction goals. I've always been intrigued by the idea of stewardship. We've inherited such amazing buildings, and today it is our time to do the right things with them, to complement the work of past masters and to secure their passage to new generations. At NEI General Contracting, Joe Retman has built a valued reputation and a solid foundation that allows the company to be involved with not just construction, but financing and property development as well. Their dedication to historic preservation and landmark properties is evidenced by their expansive and award-winning portfolio, including City View Commons in Springfield, the Oscar Romero House in New Bedford, and the Georges Island Mine Storage Building in Boston. Their ultimate goal is having not just a revitalized building, but a revitalized community presence as well. With the hum of activity once again surrounding the building, the vision now extends to those who will ultimately perpetuate the life that has been breathed back into this historic building. At Peabody Properties, the devotion of founder Edward Fish to the preservation of our cultural heritage lives on through the commitment of his daughters, Principal and CEO Karen Fish Will, and Principal and COO Melissa Fish Crane. Under their leadership, the firm recognizes the exceptional nature of these sites and historic role each plays within its community. Their approach to successful marketing begins with a vision, and they imagine the property as a completed community, full of vitality and activity, and begin the thoughtful process that will ultimately stimulate the emotional incentive to call this community home. And they understand how the management of historic structures is also unique, implementing teams of professionals with expertise to preserve and protect the buildings as they are being used. For both Karen and Melissa, they find it deeply gratifying to be recognized among such a diverse group of professionals. Together, we represent the multidisciplined nature of the real estate profession, and we share a common dedication to the preservation of our heritage here in Massachusetts. The work must continue, and we will do all we can to further such a worthwhile cause. As machines quiet and workers leave the site, paint dries and glass is polished, residents, tenants, and occupants make ready to move in and call the building home. It is time to begin a new chapter in the life of this historic building. With the long and winding preservation journey nearly complete, it's time to take stock of just how far we have come. From a dilapidated and worse-for-wear beginning, a true transformation has taken place. The building as it stands now has not only been returned to its former glory, it has been propelled into the future. The new life granted to it by our honorees and their tireless work will be the next chapter for a piece of our built landscape. Like the gems that they are, the newly restored and rehabilitated buildings are ready to be presented to the community. The same community that may have said so long ago, they should do something with that building, can now see firsthand the incredible work that results when the proverbial they bring to life the potential that was first glimpsed within its historic fabric. Now that ribbons are ready to be cut and doors flung open, it's time to celebrate the buildings themselves. For the 2015 Tsongas Awards, we want to show off the incredible projects that you have all brought to fruition. We ask for your help in celebrating your success and nominate your deserving projects. Success begets success, and your work is a model for others to emulate and strive toward. So mark your calendars for May 6, 2015, and the conclusion of producing preservation. None of this would have been possible without the dedication, expertise, and craftsmanship that our honorees this evening bring to their projects. They went wholeheartedly into them, and the results more than show that they are well worth having. We hope that the pride and success felt in this room tonight will continue as you bring your expertise and professionalism to other historic restoration projects. On behalf of the preservation community of Massachusetts, we say to you all, congratulations, and thank you for your incredible work. Preservation Massachusetts is honored to recognize you this evening and ask for a round of applause for our deserving awardees. Thank you very much, and good night.